Welcome, everyone, to the 2020 MCBK meeting. I'm Chuck Friedman, one of the co-chairs of MCBK. We're delighted you're here. I'm joined by Rachel Richardson, who I think you also can see, the other MCBK co-chair. So let me say from the beginning that this was not the format of the meeting we were expecting to have. But we're very much hoping that this will be as closely as it can be approximated, the meeting substantively that we were hoping to have. We have a terrific registration for this meeting. Last I heard, it was well over 170 people. So this will be the biggest meeting we've had of the three. And I also want to thank in advance, although I won't mention anybody by name right now, all of the people who worked very, very hard to make what was going to be a face-to-face meeting into a virtual meeting with very little time in which to do it. So thank you, everyone, and we will mention some people by name toward the end of the meeting. I'm going to begin this opening session with a few slides. Some of them will be slides that the veterans of this meeting have seen before, talking a bit about what MCBK is all about. And then after that, I will turn this introductory session over to Rachel, who will say a little bit about what MCBK as a movement is. There will be more about that tomorrow. And then she will go over the plan for today and tomorrow's meeting, as well as a review of some, call them technical issues, which we need to address by virtue of the format of this meeting being virtual and over the web. So to begin, I can't imagine a time certainly in my lifetime, when it's been more important to talk about promoting better health. This has always been the case, but it just seems more prominent now than ever. And certainly, I think it's safe to say that better health is why we're all here today, in part because of COVID-19, but of course, in a transcendent sense, better health is what we all seek in our jobs every day. But why MCBK? Why this meeting? Why MCBK in pursuit of better health? And it starts by thinking about what the K stands for in MCBK. And of course, it stands for knowledge. And as we have developed this movement, we have come to think about knowledge in a very, very specific way that we think serves the purpose of this meeting very, very well. And that is to think about knowledge as a result, as you see on the slide, of an analytical and or deliberative process that holds significance for an identified community. So to expand on this definition a little bit more, we can look at some examples of biomedical knowledge. And as you go down this list, they move from types of biomedical knowledge that are primarily analytical in origin to primarily deliberative in origin. So predictive and explanatory models, computable phenotypes, causal and propositional networks. And now as we move toward the deliberation component of the origin of knowledge, we move into best practice guidelines, decision trees, and policies. All of these are examples, in our view, shaping MCBK's mission of biomedical knowledge. Another key point of departure for MCBK is a sense that there are two complementary ways to represent knowledge. On the left is the tried and true human readable representation of knowledge in words, pictures, and equations, things we can read in language and symbols and understand. And in anticipation of the session to follow our keynote a little bit later this morning, what libraries of the present have been focused on in fulfilling their missions is the curation, management, and dissemination of human readable knowledge. But we are anticipating a future where Human readable knowledge will be complemented by knowledge in machine executable form. In other words, knowledge in code that machines can execute. And this form of computable knowledge will be the purview of libraries of the future. Again, anticipating a session a little bit later this morning. Now moving to why knowledge is important in the larger sense of improving health. Many of us believe, and in fact, I hope everybody on the in this session believes, that better health requires continuous improvement. And many of us view this model for continuous improvement through the lens of learning health systems. And if you look at continuous improvement through the lens of learning health systems, your attention quickly turns to cycles of continuous improvement focused around health problems of interest, each cycle focused on a specific health problem of interest. And in this cycle, improvement results from a progression beginning with performance to data, P to D, moving to data to knowledge, D to K, moving then to implementation, bringing that knowledge to performance, K to P, and then back learning from the experience of implementation and feeding the next iteration of the cycle over which continuous improvement is possible. We want to point out, and this is very, very important to MCBK, that MCBK is focused on addressing health problems across a range of domains, certainly including healthcare, but also including public health. And of course, we're seeing in COVID-19 how important public health is, also including research. And there will be a session on focused on research later this morning, and also on education. We need to keep in mind that there were 4 problem domains of interest to MCBK. If you then view this learning cycle and juxtapose it with knowledge, you can think about knowledge because it sits at the junction point between D to K and K to B, P, as the keystone that holds knowledge together, sitting there at 12 o'clock and metaphorically, as well as substantively, holding the cycle together. And therein lies the problem. Without a keystone, there's a gap. That gap between D to K, the creation of new knowledge, and K to P, the application of that knowledge to improve performance, has vexed us for decades. And not only that, there is a widespread belief that the width of this gap in time, in other words, the latency between the discovery of new knowledge that can improve health and its widespread application to practice or performance, is of the order of magnitude of 17 years, plus or minus. It is a wide gap, and it is essential that we be able to span it and reduce it, and that is one aspect of what MCBK is all about. This brings us to the fundamental MCBK proposition. MCBK rests on the proposition that closing the improvement gap requires computable knowledge at that keystone point. That human readable knowledge will not get us there. And this is fundamentally the point of departure for MCBK. Expanding on that, we need an infrastructure. We need an ecosystem. We need a scalable infrastructure to support this improvement at scale using computable knowledge. And this brings into sharp focus the role of libraries of the future, to curate, manage, and disseminate computable knowledge. So libraries very much sit at this keystone and point and can be viewed as essential to holding this cycle of improvement together. Now, why do we need this? Heretofore, we've relied on systems designed for discovery to support improvement, and this is why we have the gap. Systems that rely on human readable knowledge operate in sequential form. Somebody does a study, publishes a result in a journal. Somebody else reads that study, publishes that in a journal, and somebody else reads that study and does his or her own research and publishes that in a journal. And what you see here is a serial process of discovery that requires only mass access to knowledge in order to function. And human readable knowledge actually serves that purpose quite well. However, if we want to implement an improvement system that operates rapidly, and in order to operate rapidly, it must operate in parallel, this requires a sort of mass action that human readable knowledge cannot support. To enable this agile mass action, persistent computable knowledge is essential. So to close my remarks, and the goal of my remarks has been to set the stage for the meeting that will occupy us over the next 2 days. I want to close with the point that we probably are sitting, and in my opinion, we are sitting on the verge of a second knowledge revolution as we move from the heritage of the first knowledge revolution, which has led to and enabled mass access to human readable knowledge, but which can only feed sequential processes, to a new dependence, reliance on computable knowledge, which can enable the kind of mass action that will enable continuous improvement at scale and get us to the point where widespread health improvement is possible across the 4 domains that I referred to earlier. This concludes my introductory remarks. I now turn the presentation over to Rachel, who will talk about MCBK and this year's meeting. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chuck, and welcome everybody. And thank you for joining us today. Let me get my slides advances. So what is MCBK? Mobilizing Computable Biomedical Knowledge. We're a multi-stakeholder movement to mobilize computable biomedical knowledge. As you've shared with us the importance of doing this and the potential impact we can have. To date, we're in our 3rd year now. We had an organizing meeting at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor in 2017, and many of the participants of that meeting have moved on to serve and continue to serve on our steering committee. We've had 2 annual open public meetings, both at the NIH in the summers of 2018 and 2019. We have 4 work groups, which formed during that first meeting and have been working continuously since, and I'll describe those in a moment. We have a number of web resources. So we have a page, mobilizecbk.org, where we post the videos, minutes, reports from our public meetings, as well as some of the work groups, videos on what is CBK, what is MCBK, papers, et cetera. We also have, due to the gracious support of University of Michigan, file sharing and some listservs so that we can coordinate across these different work groups to move our agenda forward. We've hosted a number of webinars, and those 2 are available on the webpage to try and pull in and coordinate with different stakeholder groups and potential partners here. And there's a number of national and global collaborations that Chuck will touch on at the start of the day tomorrow. So we've got a lot of activity in just this short time. The premise and foundation of MCBK is this manifesto, and this is also available on our website, and I will encourage you to access it and read it if you haven't already. The foundation is really the principle that health decisions really should be informed by the best available evidence at the appropriate time, place, and that this evidence and knowledge should be available to those that are making decisions. With all the advances in computer power and health information systems and health information technology, there's just tremendous potential to move knowledge right to the points of care or healthcare decision making where it's needed the most. And we want to create an ecosystem to make sure that this can be done safely and effectively. And there are a number of principles that support our work in our main objective, which is to make computable biomedical knowledge fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So this is our foundation. This was developed initially by our steering committee and internal planning team, but then went out to the participants prior to our first public meeting in 2018, and then incorporated feedback in a number of calls for input. And then what you see really is a collaborative and consensus document from our community. As I mentioned, we have 4 working groups, and you'll hear from them today and tomorrow. And I really encourage folks to attend some of these sessions and get involved. A standards work group is led by Bob Greenis and Bruce Bray. Our technical infrastructure work group is led by Chris Schaefer and Leslie McIntosh. Our sustainability for mobilization and inclusion is led by Chris Dimmick and Jerry Perry. And our policy in coordination to ensure quality and trust work group is led by Blackford Middleton and Jody Platt. So last year's public meeting was in person. We were fortunate enough to have the support of NIH and NLM and held our meeting at the Natcher Conference Center. We had close to 160 participants, a number of keynotes and panels. We had demonstrations and a really vibrant poster session, which we'll try and recreate today in an online format. And as I mentioned, these 4 work groups spent time working together in each of the 2 days to identify challenges, gaps, opportunities, and move forward an action agenda in each of these areas. So this year, we want to build on the momentum from our past 2 public meetings. Despite the online format, I'm really looking forward to the potential we have to come together and advance things. Our meeting goals are to strengthen our foundation for the shared recognition of the values and principles for mobilizing CBK, which are listed very well, articulated well in our manifesto. We want to deepen our recognition that the MCBK imperative and deepen our understanding of what's possible if we realize what's stated in that manifesto. We hope to advance the work group's action plans, and each work group, as you'll see, has a deliverable that they're going to present and be working on, and begin to plan next steps to move them forward and move us as a community forward. We hope to generate new ideas for mobilizing and advancing CBK. So we really do hope to hear from you during and after this meeting. We want to identify opportunities for future collaboration and continue to grow the MCBK community. So quick highlight of today and tomorrow, you have your detailed agenda with links, but for an opening keynote, we have Dr. Patty Brennan, who will give us some context of where CBK can and should fit to enhance our health and knowledge dissemination. We have a panel on CBK and the Library of the Future, playing on to Chuck's earlier point about the critical role of libraries in this. We have a presentation on CBK revolutionizing biomedical research, a couple of presentations actually. Our panel on CBK infrastructure and action will show some actual test cases and challenges that are happening in both public and private collaborations. Lightning poster presentations. We will hear from each of our 26 accepted posters a quick overview, and then we will later in the day have our interactive poster session in smaller breakout rooms, so you can choose the posters that are most of interest or relevance to you and discuss and chat with the authors of the posters. And just before the poster session, we'll have a panel of our work group co-chairs that will talk about the activities and achievements of each of the work groups and preview the activities going on tomorrow. And again, we welcome you to join into those groups. So the plan for tomorrow is we'll start with some comments and perspectives from both the US and the UK about where MCBK is and might go. We'll talk about engaging different stakeholders. We have some wonderful speakers talking about the patient and public perspectives in this. We'll have work group action sessions in separate breakout rooms, and we'll encourage you and give you direction on how to sign up for those. And then we will have a closing session and then an informal social hour that we really do encourage you to join and tell us what you think of the meeting. So just a couple of notes on meeting logistics and reminders. In case you have any trouble at all, we will keep updates on our website, which is mobilizecbk.org. But you've got the meeting URL here, and obviously you're in it. We'll have interactive poster sessions that will be in 6 themed rooms. So you will see the sign up for those poster sessions above your video. So please do go in there and sign up. You should also see a poll in this opening about if this is your first MCBK meeting or not. We're trying to gauge how many new members we have, and we'll report that throughout the meeting. So again, we've got this interactive poster session. The lightning session will give you the preview, and then at the end of the day, you could head to that poster session. We'll also have our work group action sessions for tomorrow. And we'll encourage you, if you haven't already signed up for a work group, please go ahead and do that today. And again, these links should be over your screen. And should you have any trouble, again, check our website for updates or information. And then our hashtags, please do feel free to tweet if you do that. Just a couple quick notes on the technology in our platform here. We're actually conducting a series of Zoom meetings that are being collated and coordinated and sent out via an IBM platform that we recommend Google Chrome as a browser. You'll all be muted, but please do answer our direct questions or comments into the Q&A pod throughout the 2 days, and they will get to the appropriate speakers or moderators to address. Again, if you have any challenges, go to the webpage for more information, or you can email Michelle Williams at mzwill@umich.edu, and she can help you troubleshoot any problems that you may be having. Get comfortable. We've got 2 days together, some wonderful speakers, panelists, volunteers that have done such work in this area that I'm excited to hear these ideas and reports of all that's been going on the past year. Stand up, move around, take a break as you need to. We are recording this, so you will be able to access the recordings and meeting summaries after. And then please just enjoy. So again, our hashtag is #mobilize CBK. So please do feel free to do that.